What's going on, duelists? It's your boy Nick, bringing you today on the channel, for the very first time, my ABC XYZ Union deck profile for the post April 7th, 2025 ban list. For those of you new to the channel, welcome. My name is Nick. We do Yu-Gi-Oh content mainly focused around rogue and casual decks alike. If that's the kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that you're interested in, then I highly encourage you just to smash that subscribe button. We are currently working our way to 3,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. So, for those of you unaware, YCS Houston was just finished as of time of recording about an hour ago, and at the end of the YCS, Konami dropped the TCG ban list for April 7th, 2025, and that ban list was actually pretty large. We got so many different things unbanned, as well as banned. Things like Abyss Dweller are gone, Dimension Shifters limited, pretty much almost all of the Bystial main deck monster names are limited, are semi-limited, my correction, and their boss monster, Bystial Detonator, is limited. And then a lot of the Malice main deck monster names have also been semi-limited as well. So there's been like hits across the board. Snake Eye Poplar and Snake Eye Ash are back to 2. It was just a pretty wild list overall. And I was actually patiently waiting for the list to drop. That way I could bring you guys my take on ABC Union. And ABC recently just got more new support in the form of retrains of the old X, Y, and Z machine Union monsters, and the new support is actually really cool. And this deck is, honestly, I've been testing it for the past few weeks now, different builds and variations, until I finally come to the build that I'm bringing to you today, in which I've settled on. And it's just a ton of fun. I've been having a blast with this deck overall, and I can't wait to bring it back on the channel to do combos and test hands with you duelists, as well as even try to do some live duel videos. So with that intro out of the way, you know how we do here on the channel. We're going to dive headfirst into the deck profile, starting with the monster lineup, of course. And this is going to be a 50-card deck list. A little bit larger, but there's a reason for that, and I'll explain why as we go through the profile. So starting things off, we have the brand new X Cross Cannon out of the new Maze of the Master side set. X Cross Cannon is pretty much the extender that Union decks, or ABC in general, has always dreamed of. As long as you control a light machine fusion or a Union monster, you are able to special summon the X Cross Cannon from your hand. Now this card almost works like Union Hanger, but in monster form, where during your main phase, you can equip an appropriate light machine Union monster from your deck to this card as an equip spell, as if it were equipped by that monster's own effect. Now what's crazy about this is that X Cross Cannon does not put a restriction in the way that Union Hanger does that says you cannot special summon that equipped monster that turn. X Cross Cannon does not have that clause. Instead, the only thing X Cross Cannon states is that after you've used his effect, you are locked into light monsters from the extra deck, which, to be fair, is a little bit of a hindrance, but not really. And we'll talk about why that's the case when we get into the extra deck. But X Cross Cannon, amazing extender, and basically just acts as like an additional Union Hanger for the deck, which is very strong, allowing you to get access to your additional Union pieces, so you're able to, make your contact fusion boss monsters with the greatest of ease. So 3 copies of X Cross Cannon to start things off. Then we have 1 copy of Y Yarhead and 1 copy of Z Zillion Tank. Again, brand new retrains of the old X, Y, and Z monsters. Y Yarhead and Z Zillion Tank are actual Union monsters. One thing I didn't bring up about X Cross is that X Cross is not a Union, which I guess is really the only sad thing about it in the grand scheme. But again, I know that they're retrains of the old versions of themselves, and I know the old X Head Cannon was actually a vanilla monster. So, at least X Cross has a crazy effect. I mean, would it be better if it was the Union? Absolutely, but, beggars can't be choosers. But Y Yarhead and Z Zillion Tank are Union monsters, which makes them very strong, and neither of them have once per turn effects. Well, they're soft once per turns, I should say, so they're once per turn per copy. So you're able to loop both of these cards. So Y Yarhead, if it's special summoned, he allows you to equip a level 4 light machine monster from your hand or graveyard to him as an equip spell, again locking you into lights. And then Z Zillion Tank, if it's special summoned, allows you to add equip one of your banished level 4 light machine monsters to him as an equip spell. So Yarhead grabs from grave or hand, Z Zillion grabs from banished, allowing you to recycle your resources and give you almost an infinite grind game of sorts. And in addition to those unique effects, both Y Yarhead and Z Zillion have the typical Union monster protection effect where you can either unequip this card and special summon it, or if the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy these cards instead. So as one-ofs, they're fine. I've thought about maybe playing 2 Zillion, but at the same time, these cards aren't starters, and I just wanted to avoid playing like too many soft bricks or garnets. You know, you usually don't want to max out on cards that aren't starters unless it's for a really good reason. And honestly, with all the testing I've done with this deck, I felt that 1 Yearhead and 1 Zillion have worked out just fine. I'll continue testing the list and I'll see if that opinion changes, but for the time being, I think 1 and 1 is perfect, at least for the purposes of my particular build. So moving on to the original pieces. Well, I say original, and I use that term loosely because technically the original pieces would be the original X, Y, and Z, but obviously those are no longer played due to power creep, and they're just not very good anymore. But we are playing 3 B-Buster Drake, 2 A Assault Core, and C Crush Wyvern. There's not much to say about these cards. They're not starters in their own right. However, they can come up in multiple card combos depending on if you've opened Hanger or if you've opened like unauthorized reactivation and different things like that. But B is still the best letter in my opinion, allowing you to tutor any of your unions from deck to hand. Again, all of these cards are soft once per turns on their effects. A Assault Core allows you to add a union from grave to hand, and C Crush Wyvern allows you to special summon a union monster from your hand. In addition to those unique effects, each one of them has the typical union protection clause, where if a monster that they're equipped to would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you destroy the equip instead. And in addition to that, B Buster makes the monster it's equipped to unaffected by spells, A Assault Core makes the monster it's equipped to unaffected by monsters, and C Crush Wyvern makes the monster they're equipped to unaffected by traps, which makes them pretty formidable when they're equipped to some of your boss monsters through their own unique effects. And so far I've been liking the 3-2-2 ratio. I've seen lists that only play 1 C Crush, but honestly, I'm just trying to avoid getting hurt by Bystials. While I know Zillion can add your banished pieces back, I just like having the additional set of names for the grind game, really. So that rounds out all of these pieces. Now moving into some of the other stuff, we are on 1 copy of Union Driver and 1 copy of Union Pilot. 2 cards that I feel don't really get enough love. Mainly Union Pilot. Obviously, I know a lot of builds play the Driver at their disdain because they do feel this card's a brick, and it is, but it is kind of an engine requirement that you just have to play. And to that effect, so is Union Pilot. However, if you play Pilot, it also makes Driver feel less clunky than it normally is, because Pilot's able to pull off some pretty unique combos, and with Driver and Pilot together, they also allow you to make your Cyber Dragon Infinity out of your extra deck for pretty much free without having to play garnets like, the Galaxy Soldiers and whatnot. So far I've really been liking the 1 Driver and the 1 Union Pilot in the main board. Again, personal preference of mine. I know a lot of people choose not to play it, but I would say give it a chance because I've been testing with Union Pilot and I've liked it quite a bit. Then we do have the 1 X-Head Cannon, the original X-Head Cannon. Now, a lot of you are probably scratching your head as to why we're playing a vanilla, and that has to do with a brand new spell that came out to support the theme, which kind of requires us to play this as an engine requirement so we can search the new X-Cross Cannon. Again, we wouldn't have that problem if X-Cross was a Union himself, but he isn't, so we have to kind of make some concessions there, and that's why we do play the 1 X-Head Cannon. Again, it is a brick, but this is why I'm playing a 50-card deck list, because I want to mitigate the chances of drawing the less ideal cards that are in this deck. So moving on with the remaining list, we have 1 copy of Tortune Gear, followed by 1 copy of Therion King Regulus for a very small Therion package. The Tortune Gear is obviously really cool, being a tuner, allows us to cycle into Ancient Fairy Dragon, which gets us to our Therion Disc Coliseum, which in turn grabs us a copy of Regulus, and as we know, Regulus is just a very strong machine on Unigate, but it works out even better in a Union deck because when you equip the machine to him, you're able to unequip the whatever you've equipped to him and special summon it as a body, kind of as an extender, which is pretty cool. Moving on, we are playing a Fiendsmith package in this deck, consisting of triple copies of Engraver, 1 Lacrima, and 1 Fabled Lurie. Now, before a lot of you roll your eyes, you have to understand that this deck, with the new support, locks us into light monsters out of the extra deck. Now, if you really think about that, that's not a big problem until you consider the fact that there are very few light extra deck monsters that have very strong effects. Like we're not able to make Access Code. We're not able to make Appaloosa. Obviously, I know she's banned in the TCG. But like, even if she wasn't banned, we wouldn't be able to make that. You know, all we can do is what, like Firewall, which ever since it had the errata, it's not as great as it used to be. We can make like Mech Knight, Crusadia, Avermax, but again, none of those cards are like disruption, right? So I feel like the Fiendsmith package is perfect in this deck because A, it gives you access to light extra deck cards that put a lot of pressure on your opponent and give you insane amounts of follow-up, and B, they're just great cards and also a really awesome supplementary engine that doesn't get in the way of what ABC wants to do on its own. You can easily, if you draw like a weird or awkward hand, the Fiendsmith package can easily carry you a turn or two until you get access into your engine and helps you play better into different hand traps like Bystials, and in some cases even Droll and Lockbird, which can unfortunately shut down this deck because this deck does happen to do a lot of searching. So I felt that Fiendsmith was the best engine to play as opposed to something like, you know, a Galaxy Soldier engine or, you know, anything else that, like, you know, where in instances where you get Drolled specifically, you're pretty down bad against, you know, like when you're playing stuff like that. The Fiendsmith engine is just so diverse and offers you so much potential. It's kind of ignorant not to play. And the fact that, you know, they also got reprinted, or at least Engraver got reprinted, which was the most expensive piece of the engine. He got reprinted in the new Quarter Century Stampede set, which at time of recording comes out at the end of this week. There's almost no reason not to play Fiendsmith at this point. It's just a really strong engine and just gives you really good grind game. And like I said, helps you push through boards, gives you access to different removal effects. I can't understand how amazing this package was. And again, for a long time, I was a hater of this particular engine and just always rolled my eyes whenever somebody posted a profile featuring it. But after playing it myself and like really experiencing what it's able to do, I've come to the conclusion that this engine is really, really awesome. And it doesn't do anything that's like inappropriately disgusting, right? Like, you're not ending on like, you know, multiple Omni Negate boards off of a single, like, all we're using this engine is to help like shore up some of the weaknesses that ABC has, and it gives us access to, again, some really cool extra deck pieces that have, you know, really strong interaction against our opponent. So this rounds out the Fiendsmith package that we are choosing to play in the deck. Now moving into some of the non-engine that we're running in the main, we have a playset of Fool Loss, playset of Effect Veilers, and then 2 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. These are all pretty self-explanatory. Molcharmi, again, also getting reprinted in Quarter Century Stampede, so this card's price is also going to be much more attainable for a lot of you. Then we have Veiler and the Nib are also just, you know, very strong, generic catch-all stuff that you'll find in a lot of different decks. Now moving into the spell cards, of course, we do have a playset of Union Hanger, pretty much the best field spell in the game, in my opinion. Follow that up with a playset of Union Activation, a brand new spell card, again from Maze of the Master, to coincide with the new X, Y, and Z retrains. Union Activation allows you to send a Light Machine normal or Union monster from your hand or deck to grave, to then add a Light Machine monster with the same attack, but a different name from the deck to your hand. So this is why we have to play the vanilla X-Head cannon, because that's the only way through this card that we're able to search our new X cross cannon. And again, you can also bridge from like B into Y, or B into Z, or Y into B, or Y into Z, and vice versa, because B, Y, and Z also have the same stats. Unfortunately, A Assault Core and C Crush Wyvern don't have similar stats, so they can't be searched by this. And then again, the X Cross, you know, isn't a union, so the only way we can get to X Cross is by playing the original X-Head cannon. And that would be like my only gripe with that, is that I wish X Cross was a union. But then we also have 3 copies of Unauthorized Reactivation, which is pretty much like an additional 3 copies of Called by the Grave, because what you're able to do with this card is so versatile. This can either be combo for you, or this can also be like, again, like a non-engine for you, depending on what you need it for. So in situations where like you normal summon your starter, activate its effect, and your opponent chains like an infinite impermanence on you, you can chain this in response and equip a Sea Crush Wyvern to that monster, and now that monster is unaffected by traps. Because remember, A, B, and C make the monsters they're equipped to unaffected by their respective types. So like B stops spells, or makes them unaffected by spells, A makes them unaffected by monsters, and C makes them unaffected by traps. Which makes reactivation, it kind of like ensures that your plays will force themselves through. And then obviously Union Hanger, Still the best one-card combo and the best field spell in my opinion. On activation, searches you a Light Machine Union from deck to hand, and then if a Light Machine Union is normal or special, you can target that monster and equip an appropriate union from your deck to that monster as an equip spell. However, that monster cannot be special summoned that turn. But again, that's why we play the Union Driver, which bypasses that restriction to some degree. So that wraps up our 3 archetypal playsets of spells. Then we are on 2 copies of the Fiendsmith Tract, again, because we are playing the Fiendsmith package in this deck. Then we also play 1 copy of Therion Disc Coliseum, followed by 1 Terraforming, and then the 1 Called by the Grave to round out our spell cards in here. Obviously, the Disc Coliseum's in here just to have an additional field spell to search, and also gives us access into our Therion King Regulus as well, which is obviously very strong. Now moving on to the traps. Again, this is a 50-card deck. The remaining traps are basically just more non-engine. So in addition to the Molcharmi, the Veiler, and the Nibs, we're also on a playset of Infinite Impermanence, as well as a playset of Dominus Purge in this deck. Purge is actually in testing been really, really strong for me. I'm loving this card. And again, if you look back at the deck list, nothing that we're playing conflicts with Purge's restriction. We do not play any darks, waters, or fires in this deck, so we can use Purge from the hand and not have to worry about, beating around the bush with certain attributes. I just didn't want any confliction, so I purposely built the deck to ensure that Purge wouldn't conflict with anything. And as a result, the card's very, very strong and super slept on, in my honest opinion. So that wraps up the 50-card main deck. Now we're going to be diving headfirst into the extra deck, of which we do play 2 copies of ABC Dragon Buster, followed by 1 of the brand new XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. These are your basic Union boss monsters that you fusion into them by contact fusing. You do not use a fusion spell. You just banish the listed material from your field and or grave, respectively. Obviously, the Hyper Dragon Cannon requires X-Cross, Y Yearhead, and Z Zillion Tank, and then the Dragon Buster requires A Assault Core, B Buster Drake, and C Crush Wyvern as material. ABC Dragon Buster, as old as it is, I believe it's almost 10 years old at time of recording. This card is still packs a punch and is still very relevant even in today's format. The fact that he's quick effect banish removal and can quick effect tag himself out to break himself down into the respective pieces again just gives you infinite recursion and makes this card quite difficult to interact with. And the Hyper Dragon Cannon, while not as strong in my opinion as the Dragon Buster, still is a great removal effect during the opponent's turn, and also ensures that you can get to a second ABC Buster, even if your first one is not able to be tagged out for whatever reason. So I like the 2-to-1 ratio for that. Then we have 1 copy of the new Union Controller. This card is just incredible in my opinion. You contact fuse it by using a Light Machine and a Y Yearhead or a Z Zillion Tank. And on summon, this card lets you search for a spell trap that mentions Union in its text. In addition to that, he also allows you to once per turn special summon a Light Machine normal or Union monster from your hand, giving you that additional extension. So the 1 copy of Union Controller is very powerful for this deck. Then obviously we have the 1 copy of Fiendsmith Desiree, because again, this is pretty much the payoff for that package. We also play 1 copy of Ancient Fairy Dragon, again helps us bridge into our Therion play. 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Nova, and then 1 copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity for the extra deck. Moving on, rounding out the extra deck with some of our links, we have 1 copy of Fiendsmith Requiem, 1 copy of Moon of the Closed Heaven, 1 copy of Fiendsmith Sequence, 1 copy of Hip Hoshinigan, 1 copy of Platinum Gadget, see if we can fit all this here on the screen, 1 copy of Fiendsmith's Agnumde, and then to round out the last card in the extra is 1 copy of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Now, this is all up to personal preference. Obviously, the Fiendsmith package does take up a considerable amount of your extra deck, but again, I think they're worth the payoff, given that you're able to make a Fiendsmith Desiree that, can't be targeted, has piercing damage with the help of Agnumde, and just hits like a truck. I think you can get it up to like 5,600 damage, or even higher if I'm not mistaken. Can't think about it off the top of my head, but you can obviously sub this for a different package if you so choose. You don't have to play Fiendsmith in this deck, but I just feel like it's the best way to play the deck, and also plays best into certain hand traps like Droll, which are highly abundant this format, in my honest opinion. So take that as you will. Like I said, I know the Fiendsmith engine, a lot of people have a bit of disdain for it, but after playtesting with it, I think it's amazing in my honest opinion. And I don't say that about a lot of things. So that rounds out the extra deck, of course. Now moving into the side. Again, side deck's always up to personal preference, but we are playing a playset of Droll and Lockbird. We are playing a playset of Molcharmy Meowls. We're also on the third Nibiru, because obviously we only main deck the 2, and then we side the third. We're also on a playset of Dark Ruler No More, 2 copies of Lightning Storm, and then to round out the remaining side is just a playset of the Black Goat Laughs. I think this card is really slept on in my opinion. A very powerful card, especially in this deck, since a lot of your boss monsters like your Dragon Buster and your Hyper Dragon Cannon have discard effects, which means you can pitch a card like Black Goat for your Dragon Buster effect to banish, and then Black Goat Engrave is still an additional disruption, being a negate for you, which is pretty strong in my opinion. So that wraps up the sideboard. Let me know down in the comments below what you duelists think of the new ABC support. Also, if you guys are going to try this deck out yourselves. And yeah, like I said, stay tuned. I will be doing a combos and test hands video for this deck. I am so glad that we finally got our ban list. And I think this deck, you know, technically is a bit stronger than it was previously. Because, you know, a lot of the upper decks kind of got checked a little bit, which means that some of the tier 2 decks kind of get an opportunity to rise up to some degree. So I think this deck is in a much better position than it was previously, especially now that cards like Abyss Dweller are banned and Dimension Shifter's limited. We don't have to worry about us getting locked out of our graveyards as often, which is very crucial for a deck like this that, you know, relies so heavily on its graveyard setup. So, like I said, that is my take on ABC Union XYZ. I'm not even sure what to call the deck, honestly. We'll just call it ABC Union, I guess, featuring the new XYZ support. But if you guys, like I said, enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more amazing content coming your way. And now, like I said, now that we have the ban list pretty much revealed, I'm definitely going to be back in the lab cooking. Just kind of bear with me, though. Like I said, I'm actually in the process of moving currently. My fiance and I ended up getting a house, so it's been a little hectic for me. I've also been working pretty long hours at work, so you know, if you notice that I haven't been uploading as often as I did previously, that's only because in my personal life I've just had a lot going on. So just again, bear with me. You know, I appreciate all of you for still showing me your continued support, and it absolutely does mean the world to me. So, like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed my take on ABC. And with that being said, this is Nick, hitting that end phase. Peace.